Perfect.
I'm going to record it, and now we're
Okay.
recording, and I will get the MP4 file to you sometime. So,
Thank you.
and just to kick off, I'm here today representing basically myself. I met all these folks during an IRP training, and I offered them some time to ask some questions, get some of my thinking and experience in the work, and then they can share this video internally, and that's the purpose of today's meeting. All right, so as I was saying, let's check in. And one of my favorite check-in questions is simply, just take a few minutes and what crossroad are you at this point in your life? What crossroad are you at? Now, this question comes out of the book, and forgive me if I sound too, pandemic to be teaching, or pandemic. What's the word? I hate to lecture, but I'm going to just lecture a little bit and share some books. So I'm not sure if Jenny or Chelsea, Catherine, if you're familiar with this book, but this is where this question comes from. Community, the Structure of Belonging. And it's written by Peter Block, who lives in Cincinnati. And this book, as you can see, it's well worn. It became a Bible of mine when I met Peter 15 years ago. He has a deep understanding of community and restorative justice. And he learned a lot about restorative practices from me and other people. He came to the IRP conference in 2015 and gave a keynote. I will send that keynote link to you if you've never looked at it. But these questions, just making a note here to send after this recording. These questions that he comes up with are powerful questions to create connection. And the what crossroad are you at in your life allows people to answer whatever level they want. So when I begin a training, I will put people in threes. Everybody get a triad with people that you don't know so well. And I won't usually start with that question. The first question might be, why is it important you're in this room today? Not why you're here. Again, he makes distinctions in all these questions. If you ask people why they're there, they're going to tell you because they're a counselor and they're suggested go to training, or they're a restorative practices coach, or they're a principal. They're going to give you the usual titles and their position. If you ask them why it's important they're in the room, you'll tap into their value system, and you encourage them to share personally why this work, in their view, is important. So that would be the first round. And then this second round, I'll do what crossroad. So I'll begin with the crossroad question. I'm 70 years old on my next birthday. I cannot believe, I swear I was 50 just 2 months ago, but I'm 70. And I know I don't look it. I love hearing people think I'm younger because of my brown hair, but the crossroad I'm at this point, sadly, I've experienced a couple of dear friends who passed away this year suddenly. Some of them were very sudden, literally. They dropped dead. One had a heart attack. So I guess I'm very aware of time and what I want to do with my remaining time. And the crossroad I'm at is I'm going to continue to do this work in the field of restorative justice. But I'm also very interested in, well, I say this, the morning after the election, half of the American population will not be happy. So that's what I'm dedicated my next chapter of my life to. There's a group called Braver Angels, and it's about bringing red and blue states together because we can't continue down this path too much longer of just thinking the other side are communist or fascist, or it's ridiculous, the narrative. We're all Americans. So I'm dedicating my next chapter to convening people together in a physical and virtual space to allow possibilities to emerge of how we're going to move forward after this contentious time. So that's where I'm at, and stay healthy, got to lose some weight, and eat better, and enjoy every day as it comes. So that's my check-in. Anybody can go next. What crossroad are you at in your career, your life, whatever.
Anyone
I
want to
can
go
be
first?
brave and go. Mine won't be nearly as eloquent as Lee, but that's okay. I am at a lot of crossroads in my life. This is a new position for me. I've been a restorative practices trainer for years as a training partner with this organization, but I was hired as a member of this organization just recently. I waited till I was much older to have children, and so now I'm nearing retirement and also going to be spending my daughter's senior year in high school with her. And so that's a big crossroad for me to look at. I have a younger daughter too, but the next chapter of my life is quickly approaching, much faster than I too thought it would come. That when they were little babies and there was days where, you were up for days on end and getting a few hours of sleep here and there, I thought the days of them moving off would never come, and here they are. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now, adjusting to a new position, but also thrilled to have this position and excited to see where my kids go in their next chapter.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks, Chelsea.
Too. I'm at a little bit of a parenting crossroads. The team knows my kids are venturing into high school. In fact, tonight is open house, and then we have pictures, and then, right, so the next week is like pick up your books and some of those obligatory things. But I think I have transitioned from a little bit of anxiety to now super excited for them and just to kind of be witness to this journey. I think the realization that 4 years from now they're going to be out of the house and we'll be empty nesters is, yeah, again, maybe now it's transition from anxiety to excitement. I know those emotions are pretty closely tied, so that's a good thing.
All right. And you have two kids close in age?
3 minutes apart.
Oh, they're twins. Oh, great. Okay. I wondered, she's speaking as if they're one unit, but they're twins.
Yep.
Makes sense. All right. Let's see, Jenny or Catherine?
I'll go next because I
Jenny.
don't know if I even want to put, I don't want to put Catherine on the spot. I'll give her the most amount of time to think as possible. I like Elisa and Chelsea. I'm going to relate my crossroads to my kids as well. We have one son who just graduated from college and started his career, one daughter who is leaving for college next week. And then we have one more son at home who will be a sophomore. And so we're also thinking about that point of our life as being empty nesters in 3 years, moving somewhere else, and just a different life, I guess. I just started at the Wish Center a year ago too, after being in schools for a long time. So this whole year has been just fraught with transitions and but in a positive way. It's all been very positive transitions. So anxiety and excitement and all those things that come with crossroads, but I'm excited to be at this point and excited to hear you today too.
Oh, thank you. All right. Catherine, do you want to share anything?
Sure. Thanks. And thanks for the grace for not having my camera on. I appreciate that, everyone. I am going to turn 60 in my next birthday. So I appreciate your connection to how a big birthday might be a signal to think about things more deeply. And for my 60th year, I have tried to do something quote unquote ridiculously fun every month as a way of marking that birthday. So I'm coming up on the last few months of that, and it's been a fun year. To just focus on what joy I can find. So that's been a really good thing. I very much appreciate the question about crossroads, and I like the opportunity to think about what a transition is like, and I'm looking forward to the next 30 years.
Okay, good. That's a good goal. I once said to my wife and my friends when I was younger, I want to live to 100. And I said, wow, it just sounds like such a big number, but I'm closer now than I've ever been. And when you're 100, 1 year is 1% of your life. So it really does go faster. When we're 10, it's like 10% of our life. So we can begin to experience time in a very accelerated fashion. And it's true. Oh my God, it's just another year again. Yeah, because we're so much older and each life year is 1% or a smaller percent. The crossroad question, Block in his book talks about as it's a possibility conversation. And in his book, he outlines, and if you get a chance to read it, I mean, I'm just terribly excited about it because it really opened up a whole new avenue of thinking for me. And it allowed me some really powerful questions in restorative circles. And not to ask a question, have all 20 people answer that. It's too big. So I always break a group in its smallest unit of change when I started training. And that is 3 people. He says that the fastest way to connect the group together is break it apart in its smallest unit of transformation. And then I give people these questions. I'll give them another one, like, what is, how participative do you plan to be today? Is the ownership question on the scale of 1 to 7. It flips the script right away that people can all acknowledge that they have competing commitments, they have other pressures, but they're here. A lot of your training may be too driven by mandate or professional development schedules. And, we know we start sometimes in negative territory in PD, but the questions allow people to truly connect before you jump into the content. And then I'll do a gift conversation, which we'll end with that later today. But just to kind of acknowledge some appreciations of what you hear in the conversation. I want to go back to something Jenny said. I do not like sequential circles with adults where, everybody's pointing to somebody. Well, okay, I'll go, and then Jenny, you go next. Well, what Jenny's doing in that time, if she knows she's going to go next, is she's already thinking of what she's going to say. So it may prevent her a little bit to listen to me deeper if I'm previous to her. So that's why I get comfortable with big periods of silence. And if I do if I have 24 people on the screen, do a virtual training and nobody goes, I'll wait a beat, I'll wait another beat, I'll wait another, and just another beat before I've said this silence is driving me crazy. I'll say, okay, now forget my question about Crossroad. Let me go put you back in small breakout rooms. Tell your partner a story that just ran through your head of why you're not going to share. So immediately as a facilitator, what you're doing is going with the energy right in front of you. So if nobody shares, that's fine. But there is actually stories or narratives running through one's mind, and you kind of just try to capture what's happening with that. When you ask a kid, what were you thinking about when that event happened? They go, I don't know what I was thinking about. And then to say, well, okay, what are you thinking about right now? I'm thinking I don't want to be here. Okay, tell me more. Where would you like to be? In other words, you go with whatever energy is right in front of you. So that's just how I begin some trainings. In a large group, I might ask people what struck you in that conversation, but read the book. I'm going to just be teacherish and give you 3 or 4 reading assignments. And because I have a lot of time, listen, at age 70, I say time is short, but I have a lot of time in my hand. I have no boss. I have a small nonprofit, and it's tiny. It's me and 1 bookkeeper and 3 board members. And when I work for IRP, it's contract money. So I get the contract, they pay me per day. So if you would like to, and I'll just offer this now, I don't know, just because I like you, Lisa, I like your energy and you're very friendly, Midwestern friendly. If you want to do another hour in a month or 2 and you kind of read the book or just come back and say, hey, you know what? Let's just check in again with this guy. Maybe he's got something to teach us and maybe I can learn from you because you are all in the thick of it. You work for the state government. You're working in schools that are coming back after another year off, another summer off. And, it's an exciting time. Kids get some new clothes, but a lot of kids don't get new clothes. They don't get a new lunchbox in elementary school. They're behind in reading because nobody read to them all summer. and then they have to go to school. So if you're interested, Elisa, we'll talk about that later. But read the book Community. So let's jump into what you wanted to talk about, which was affective statements. So why don't you just open up? You tell me a couple of things that you're hearing. And we're talking about in the context of teaching people what affective statements are. I'll share with you my view on them. But Elisa, do you want to share a little more what you wrote about people feeling uncomfortable and things like that?
Yeah, I think all of us and really concentrated maybe in the last 6 months, more so than in previous years. And anyone feel free to jump in. We've just received some feedback as we would teach that affective statement section. People just feeling a sense of discomfort. And I think, again, people that maybe are not used to speaking in terms of affect, there's always a little bit of discomfort. But almost sometimes the conversation would turn towards these feel really manipulative. And then people will always also talk about maybe other programming that they use, where this actually is in contradiction to some of the other programming, that they use, whether it's like social emotional curriculum, things of that nature. So we just wondered if you run up against those same conversations and if there's any tips or tricks.
Okay. Just say a little bit more, if you can, about how this might be in contradiction with some other model. What would that entail? What would that look like?
Jenny, can you jump in? Because
I was
this
just, I
recently
was just
came
gonna
up.
go off.
Yeah.
What we've heard people say, and it hasn't happened like every training, but we've noticed it especially more in the last several months. But what people have said is their specific training that they've received actually like leads them to be more like observational and to have that also to have the student really have the feeling within themselves without an adult giving their thoughts or how it's affecting them. Like, let's say they do well on an assignment, and if we were using effective statements, we might say, I feel proud because it looks like you really tried hard and did your best work on the assignment, something like that. Whereas they might say, wow, I noticed that you scored blah, blah, blah on this assignment. I'm wondering how you feel about that. Like that kind of a, statement. Does that seem to hit it, Elisa?
Yeah, and I think both approaches are totally appropriate. I think both are fine. I think that years ago, and I'll try to find it, there was a friend and a colleague of mine wrote an article called "The Problem with I Statements." It was probably 20 years ago, in that some people could view I statements as manipulative, that they were created in a way to induce some, even shame or guilt, that, I feel angry when you do this, and I don't want you to stop doing it to prevent me from being angry. But it's a good conversation. So let me just start my view from this perspective. In the IRP training, there is a section where you talk about affective statements, and they're usually I statements. They usually begin with an observation. That was the model that I was taught. And again, here's another book for your information if you want to look into it. Some of you may know this book by Marshall Rosenberg. It's been around for decades. And while he might not call them affective statements, they are statements rooted in observations of another person's behavior, and then recognizing that as human beings, we are, whether people like it or not, we are affected by things and stimulus in our environment, whether they're from humans or animals or weather. The affects, as Sylvan Tompkins defines them, are biological reactions in a human being at the moment of birth. That as soon as we're born, we have this internal system that keeps us alive. not only our central nervous system, our brain and our organs and our, the biology we're born with, but what he calls the affect system. And have any of you heard of Graham George from Australia? Okay. So let me bring this resource up also for you. So this is another book that was written especially for us as educators by a fellow educator. Can you see that book? Teaching with Mind and Heart, Affect in the Restorative School. Okay. This is a free book. You can download this book. This is the book here. Okay, but in his book, he is talking about affects, the compass of shame. It is written by an educator for us as educators. And it's free. And you can find it if you go to this website. This website here is called rpforschools.net. Can you see that? Yes? Anybody? Can you see that? The web.
And yeah.
Right. So RP, the URL is rp4 schools.net. And if you click on this tab here called books, the free download, the free book is right here. Teaching with Mind and Heart, Affect in the Restorative School. It is, in my opinion, it is the best book in the world on affects and that language, especially for educators in schools. Now, I start with talking about affects in terms of what Tompkins defined as the 9 affects that we share in our trainings, because somebody mentioned that too. But the word affect is usually associated with a physical manifestation that's happening in our body. And then the awareness that an affect is triggered by a student, maybe we're teaching and the student has their earbuds in and we've told them 10 times, you got to take your earbuds out and put them away during class. They're still in. That the theory is that we're going to have an emotional reaction that this student is still wearing their earbuds. We're not happy about it. Maybe we're not angry about it. We're not scared about it, but we're, you could use more granular words that we're annoyed, we're frustrated. And how do you communicate an affective statement in that situation? Well, Marshall Rosenberg's theory would be first, before you share any observation or any feeling with another human, you have to have a relationship with them. So the first thing in sharing affective statements is don't give your gold away too early. Don't share your feelings with someone that you have no relationship with. They won't give a shit about it. It's like, who cares what you think? I'm fine. I've got my buds and I can read and listen to music. All right, maybe you can, but that's the rule. And I have a rule around no electronic devices during class. In fact, little side note, we are entering the first school year since The Anxious Generation has been published. I know, Elisa, you know this book because I think I referred to it. Have you all read The Anxious Generation or been aware of it? All right, this one here. This has taken education by storm. More schools in America are now saying that we have to get rid of phones during the school day than ever before. More schools are saying, finally, we have to deal with this issue of phones. They're addictive machines. They've affected adolescents' development. There's more anxiety and depression being reported by American teenagers now than ever in our history, evidenced by ER visits, psychologists, anecdotal data, research around the world. So back to affective statements, you first have to have some relationship with the student. And in the training, the way that therapy introduces this is to first sit down with a dyad, just you and another person, sharing completion of sentence stems. I feel mad, I feel sad, I feel scared. And that's before you do anything else. before you talk about affective statements in more of a deeper way, just to share feelings. And then you could kind of talk about how our culture writ large in America is not really a feelings oriented culture. It's more of an action orientation. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to do about this crossroad? People say, what are you going to do about the crossroad? Nothing right now. I'm just going to just be aware of it. So the idea about relationships, you got to build rapport first. And how do you do that? One-on-one interviews with kids, having some time alone with them off the curriculum agenda, meet with them after class for a little bit to talk about the academic work that they're doing or not doing. It's just relationship building 101. And then if you choose to, affective statements should be shared first with the individual alone, especially if it's corrective. It's like if you want to share when you are frustrated or angry, you hopefully have an opportunity to do that without doing it in front of other kids, because they're going to get defensive. They're going to get off put if this idea of somebody correcting them in front of others. They'll either do what Tompkins' colleague Donald Nathanson talks about in the compass of shame: withdrawal or avoid, attack self or attack other, because there's shame affect to be triggered. Everybody's got earbuds in. You don't always pick on me. They'll turn the tables and attack other, or take them out and sulk and put their head down, withdraw, or just kind of like just not engage in class because they've been called out. So that said about affects, I usually then share with people this model, and here's the handout. Now, this is not part of the IRP curriculum, but this handout, can you see this handout? Okay. I don't know if you have this, Elisa, but this comes from a fellow named Joe Bremer up in Connecticut. Joe Bremer wrote the book about trauma in schools and a trauma-informed educator. He's also a fan of Marshall Rosenberg's psychology of affect and, Marshall Rosenberg's model of observations, feelings, needs, and requests. So this is one little sheet that I'll share with people when they go into their dyads and take a statement and reframe it into an affective statement. Like the one example I use is you hear a teacher saying, "Stop teasing Sandy." Now, "Stop teasing Sandy" is not an affective statement. However, it is. All right, so let me see. Can you see this screen now? Can you see this screen with baby's pictures? Okay. So let me move to this slide here. Here's an affective statement activity that I use in training. A typical response sometimes in a teacher might be saying, "Stop teasing Sandy." And a person who tried to reframe that into an affective statement, then reframed it to say, "It makes me uncomfortable when I hear you teasing Sandy." So then I'll say to the group, "What is the problem with that statement? It makes me uncomfortable when I hear you teasing Sandy." What do you all think? What are some problems with that statement? Because it's not a good affective statement. What's missing?
It doesn't have any boundaries or any expectation.
All right, so it doesn't have any request of what they want to have done in the future. But before we get to the request, what is being said when you say "it makes me uncomfortable"? Let's just take that and unpack that one. What's the problem
It's
with
really focused. Yeah, it's focusing on the behavior, but it isn't delivering the impact on me.
Okay, that's a good point. But what is the behavior? What we don't know what the behavior is. When you say "it makes me uncomfortable," we don't know what the behavior is. So the first step and I share this with people all the time. I go, you have to be precise with your language and affective language, or it's not going to land anywhere near people's understanding. So let's get precise about it. What could be behavior that you might see in a classroom that you could interpret as teasing?
Mocking someone's laugh.
Exactly. When Lee is laughing and you mock it, see, there's even some charged word about mock. So when you I don't know if they'd understand the word mimic. You see, mock is a loaded word. Mock is somewhat of a judgment. Mock is somewhat of a judgment. So you have to be careful to try to let your language be as judgment-free as possible. So when you just say, when you are, what would be another word for mock that's not loaded with any judgment? When you mimic, mimic.
Copy, I was thinking copy.
Oh, okay. That's close. When you copy the way that you hear Lee laughing, or when you laugh back, sounding like Lee, that's the observation. So before I even do affective statements, I'll put people in pairs and I'll share 10 sentences. Yeah, I put these on the wall. I put these 10 sentences on the wall. Carmen was angry when he walked in the room yesterday. I'll say, is that an observation or an evaluation? Carmen was angry when he walked in the room yesterday. So I try to make my trainings really skill building. And I say, we're going to practice the skill right now of refining language and making it observational. So was that an observation? Carmen was angry when he walked in the room yesterday? Yes or no? I'll save you
It's
from
an assumption.
It's an okay. It's not an observation. It's an evaluation. So change it into an observation. Carmen was angry when he walked in the room yesterday. Make it an observation.
Carmen was frowning when he walked in the room.
Yeah, Carmen was frowning. Carmen came in and swore and say what the swear word is. Carmen threw a book on the ground. Carmen come in and screamed, I hate this place. Now that is an observation. Anything that is seen by the eyes or heard by the ears, smelled by the nose, tasted by the mouth, or felt with the fingers. Observations are only attainable through our physical senses in our human body. Sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. So first, before I even get into, and then people are going to say, Lee, come on, I got to teach math here. You're talking about, I go, listen, this is when you go to if you do work out, when you go to the gym, do you think you're going to lose like 20 pounds in the first week? It's going to take some time. You're going to have to practice. So I talk about skill building and language development. And if you want to be good, many of you are already good teachers. Great, keep it up. If you want to be an excellent teacher, you've got to work these muscles of helping young people become emotionally literate so that when they have feelings and when you have feelings, you can communicate and still listen to each other when it's hard to listen to one another. When something's being done that frustrates you, it's hard for a person to listen to me if I'm frustrated because they might get defensive. So I spend, and I say to the group, we don't talk like this. This is not a normal way to talk. It sounds mechanical, it sounds robotic, but eventually you'll be able to smooth out your interactions and say, hey, Lee, let me talk to you after class. You pull the kid up and you say, just so you know, you caught my frustration today. You don't have to follow it linear. Like, when I saw this, I felt this because I need that and I want this. But you say, listen, you caught my frustration. Yes. Yeah. Okay. What was happening for me is I was getting pretty frustrated because I've talked with you 10 times about the earbuds and I feel frustrated. It's continuing. Now, here's the hardest part in the Marshall Rosenberg model. I need to be understood. That is my need. as your teacher, I want to be understood by you. And my request is that, that we figure out a way to get through tomorrow without the earbuds in your ears. Can we agree to do at least that? It's that simple. That takes like 2 minutes to have that interaction. And the problem that we have with our Gen Z kids that we're teaching is they are not seeing earbuds or a phone as that big of a deal because they've been having them for years. And some teachers have no problem, at least they say they have no problem with it, or they, the teachers have all different kinds of opinions. Oh, we just got to teach them how to use the phones responsibly. We got to teach them how to use the machine. They're going to be in the work world. Well, everybody's going to have an opinion about that. So let me just stop. Is any of this making sense, just in affective statements? Acknowledge that it's awkward. Acknowledge that we're not taught to be emotionally literate in our language. And let them know that this is just a model. You can take it or leave it. Let them know that in the training, this is a model to work with. You can take it or leave it. And that way they're not feeling like, so you must do this, you must speak this way. Some people are going to get it quicker than others. Some people will argue with me that you cannot choose how you feel. I say you can't choose affects that are triggered. They're biological, like breathing. They're going to happen as whether, we're not going to, if there's a loud noise, we're not going to talk ourselves out of like starting and like jerking because we don't know what the noise means. If somebody threatens our life, we're not going to talk ourselves out of being afraid or wanting to, fight something. But the model, once people go into their small groups and then do the reframing with that handout that I gave you, this is the sheet that comes back that I'll show this slide here. Okay, Stop Teasing Sandy. This comes out of Joe Bremer's book that he wrote years ago called A Trauma-Informed School. That he says, the feeling is blamed on student behavior, teasing is a judgment, which is true. The reframe he has is, when I heard you speaking to Sandy the way you did, I'm worried because I value respect. Would you be willing to tell me what you were talking about? Now, the problem with that still, in my opinion, is it's still not precise enough. I want to know what Sandy said. So instead of saying to Sandy talking to her the way you did, tell Sandy what she said. Let her know. And then the hardest step is to identify the internal need. I value respect. When I see you pulling Sandy's hair, I'm not going to say it's teasing. Maybe you're just playing around, but I value respect, and it causes me to have a reaction. Now, I get the idea that people don't want children to behave to please me. I'm not asking them to please me. I'm just giving them some information that when they behave a certain way, I will have reactions to it. I will have emotional reactions. And as a teacher in charge of, the classroom environment, I'm going to make a request. Sometimes it's sitting in a different place, seeing me after class, serving a detention, because I've done this conversation multiple times. So I'm going to leave that one there for now because it's already 1:45. Oh my God. All right. I hope that's helpful to some degree. It's a great part of the training, I think, because people aren't used to talking on an emotional level. They're used to making judgments. They don't know they're making judgments. I say, how many times have you heard a teacher say to kids, you're being rude. Stop being rude. Well, that's your opinion what rude is. Tell them what they did and let them know that when you see that behavior, it affects you as a human being. I value kindness. I value compassion. I happen to not think that what you're doing is a compassionate thing to do, and I'm going to ask you to stop. So that's one way. I talked a little bit about affective statements.
Can I ask one quick thing? I saw that wonderful handout. Is that something that like we could access, that with all the different, with like the framework, because I know, that's beautiful. I love all of the things about it. So is that something that we can access and use?
I'm gonna email to
Thank you
Elise,
so much.
that document. It has Joe's name on. Joe,
Yeah.
did you guys see this book yet?
Mm-mm.
This one just came out this summer. Obviously, trauma informed is a huge issue. It's an outstanding book because he talks about the biology of the human development of the brain, and what's happening in the brain when you have a dysregulated student around their emotions or their behavior. It's co-written by Marg Thorsborn, who was my trainer in RJ in 1994 when she came over through the basically through IRP. And Marg has a whole chapter in here on the compass of shame and shame, how shame is triggered when positive affects get interrupted. And believe me, when a kid has earbuds in their ear, they're experiencing a positive experience. They're grooving. And when we say, hey, take the buds out of your ear, that will immediately trigger a compass of shame reaction because we're interrupting their positive affect. And all they want to do is just go back to how they were. And the negotiation that has to happen, in my opinion, is that they have to see that the culture, and I would apologize to the kid. I would say, I am sorry that for years no teacher really confronted you about this, or they tried to and they just let you have the buds in your ear. I'm sorry that happened to you. But now that we know some more research about the inability to truly focus when you're addicted to a phone, schools are gonna come to this in more ways than one this school year. I don't know, is it happening in Wisconsin at all about cell phones? Any rethinking on cell phones?
Definitely a conversation.
Yeah,
And
I bet.
Lee, I want to say I appreciate the efforts that you've made to break down the concepts and give people opportunities to dig into and really understand what they're learning and practice it. And, the fact that you are bringing in other resources to supplement the IRP curriculum, for example. That's a question that we've kicked around on our team about how much to stick to IRP, how much to bring in these other resources and kind of shift a little bit, or maybe shift is the wrong word, but deepen it. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
My perspective is you're training with IRP material, you've got to stick to the script. But there's also the fact that when you have a PD and you have like 6 hours, or maybe the script covered 7 hours, so you're gonna have to cut some things. And as long as you stay focused on that, you're teaching affective statements, which is part of what the IRP agenda includes. I just find to be offering a helpful tool to refine and make more simple. And so my criticism of the IRP, one of the slides has like 25 examples of statements to reframe in affective statements. And some trainers, I don't know what they do, but they don't do what I do, which is just pick one statement and have everybody move into pairs so that the whole room is working on the same piece of information. And then when you give people a model, like I did with that handout, they work with it a little bit, and I guarantee you it's gonna be troublesome for some people because they do not distinguish between observations, feelings, and needs and requests. They're not distinguishing. So then when you ask them to distinguish between those four phenomenon for the first time in front of their peers, when they have master's level degrees and they have 20 years experience and they realize, shit, I'm not very good at this. Like, it's not fun for them, but they are learning. They are learning that there's something to learn, and it's very tangible. And so that's what I do, Catherine, is I share that handout and I say, use it as a tool. It's a model. and it takes some time to get really good at it and competent, but you can learn it, and you can use this as a way to teach kids with each other, to give each other feedback and give each other. Listen, the bottom line is most educators aren't skilled facilitators. They're skilled teachers, but they're not skilled facilitators around emotional literacy. And that's at the core of restorative practices, is to become a skilled facilitator while you're teaching, in terms of how people are interacting with each other emotionally, because that's why some people don't want to do circles. They feel it's going to open up a can of worms. It's going to get conflict. It's going to bring more to the surface they don't have time or interest in dealing with. They want to just get their math covered, and I give them that. I say, that's a very difficult thing to juggle. So I will send you the handout. I'm sorry. We're gonna.
And Lee, I was just gonna jump in. So this came up for the first time. I'm dropping in the chat, and I can't remember if this was me and you, Jenny, or me and Catherine, but a participant last year came to our training with Joe Brummer's article and shared it with us. And then so I just dropped it in the chat. That was kind of the first time that this conversation really started. And so I know we've got that article, but yeah, that came to us from another participant.
What's the article? Let me see. What's the name of it?
So it's in the chat. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Oh yeah, I got it. Okay. Yeah. So
Yep.
Joe wrote that, and Joe's a friend of mine. I just saw him in Washington last week, and went to his workshop on this book. And what Joe did in his first book, I don't have that right now, but he took IRP to task. And in the first version of the first book that IRP wrote, that chart that I showed you was right out of the first version of the IRP. Now they changed it, so they did change it to some degree, but in my opinion, again, the authors of the book, and I shared this with those authors, with Josh Wachtel and Ted Wachtel, Bob Costello, that they didn't really capture what affective statements truly are. I mean, because Joe basically was saying that your example is a non-example. It's not a good example. So I'm pretty honest. Say, listen, I agree with them, and some people at IRP don't think the same way, which is fine. I just share I say this is my opinion. IRP has their model. So I just say, yeah, just work with it. Just go with it a little bit, and learn this different model that you can in this book here, in Marshall Rosenberg's book. So listen, I actually have to take my dog to a vet. We learned my dog has an enlarged heart. I knew there was something different about this dog, but his heart is bigger than it should be. So we got to go get him an x-ray and see what we're going to do. Anyway, so I got to drive to the vet. Elisa, if you're fine with doing this again, like at the end of September, I can go fishing, but I kind of like this, and we'll just do this. You can be my small little my group of practitioners from Wisconsin.
I'm going to speak for myself. I'm going to make a generalization of our team as well, that I think we would love to keep doing this. Interestingly enough, we have been sort of kicking around what might be some continuous learning for us as a team in some of the times of the year that slow down just a little bit. And we've talked about the Peter Block Belonging book. And so, again, I don't want to speak for all of us yet, but I know that definitely excites me. So, Lee, maybe you and I can follow up. We could find another time. I'll connect with our team. And yeah, this was wonderful. We're so appreciative. Thank you so much.
What I do,
and we have a lot of dog and cat people on this team as well. So all of us are, our hearts are going out to the dog and to you right now.
Yeah, I can take another 10 minutes here, but no, thank you. I like doing it. I'm a teacher. I I say I'm a teacher, and whether I get paid for it or not, I really enjoy talking with other people. You folks are much closer to the root of this issue in American schools than I am. You're in schools. And I always say to people, and you might feel this way too, when you go to a school, you're not an administrator, you don't have power over people, but you're trying to influence people without the authority. That's part of what Peter's work is about, is how do we influence others when we don't have authority? We're not their boss, we're not their supervisor. And even if we are, it doesn't mean that anything magical is going to happen anyway. Because he says people resist coercion. They don't resist change. But and the schools are very good at coercing people, mandating people. Everybody's switched around, and now we're going to do this, now we're going to do that. And now we're going to get rid of phones after we'd spent 20 years allowing them. It's like, okay. So my point is that I like talking with other people that are in the field, doing the work, and you get to see. Don't you go to classrooms sometimes and do observations? You ever sit?
Maybe not as much. Yeah, maybe not as much, but more trainings than probably classroom observations.
Because when you're in classrooms, when you're not a supervisor, you get to see the real deal. Most of you were probably educators. You came up as an educator before you got this job, or a counselor or social worker.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of experience with this issue directly. But then training others is a real art. And good trainers have good stories that illustrate their points, and they have access to a wide variety of resources that they're not married to. I don't think there's one way to do this work. Some people in the field of restorative justice, when they do circles, they want to talk more about the ritual aspects of circles, of having centerpieces in the circle with perhaps elements of earth, wind, and fire. You can't burn candles in schools, but having a creative space. And I'm all for that. But most math teachers in an American high school are not going to sit around and try to create these warm, beautiful elements to a circle. If they just get kids to sit together. Here's one last thing. I was in a school in April, and the teacher wanted me to observe them doing a circle. I said, fine, I'll do that. I said, but before we do, could everybody, they don't know me. I said, and I do this on purpose. Instead of having every kid say their name, because they just mumble their name, they don't know. Okay, Mom, fine. I'll say to a kid, I go, can anybody introduce everybody to me? Does anybody know everybody's name? Well, guess what happens? And more often than not, I find in high schools, kids do not know the names of every student. They've been together for 6 months. Now that gives me a lot of information about that classroom, that there's not much interaction between and amongst each other. I pulled one student aside in May. I go, how's that possible? He goes, I don't talk to everybody. I just talk to my friends in here. I said, okay, but don't your teacher do small groups, and don't you ever do some fun games, or just, get to know everybody's name? No. And teachers sometimes feel shame when I've brought that up with them, that they feel they have to continue with the curriculum. They don't have time. They don't have time for this. Well, I have a belief that a teacher's job is to help everybody fall in love with each other and then teach a little math. And maybe that's too strong of a phrase, but you get my point. Let's first find out who's in our room today, and then let's get some math done here. So, all right. So checking out, I don't know, something you appreciate. What are you most? Okay, what is today? August 21st, 2024. What are you most appreciative of your day today? I'll go first again. I was looking forward to this. I like doing this, like talking, like listening, like learning. I'm appreciative of you and your willingness to kind of set aside an hour and do this. So, all right, who's next?
I will jump in. I am so appreciative, Lee, of you doing this, of our team's willingness to come together and keep these conversations going. Um, I listened to a seminar last week, and it was on the power of stories. And so, Lee, I just so appreciate as you teach. There's just a demeanor that is very it just draws some people in. I think it's very connecting, and I just love the stories. I think you're a wealth of knowledge, so appreciative. Thank you.
I'd love to do that for you. There you go.
I feel like I'm very appreciative of what you shared. I feel like I learned 1,000% more information about how to teach affective statements than, and I've been teaching them for a long time. So thank you for bringing this level of clarity in just this tiny amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm also extremely appreciative of this. I'm training tomorrow and like thinking, what can I adjust for tomorrow? I don't know. I mean, I got some thoughts. So I really appreciate it. And I thank you for taking the time today, and good luck with your dog today
Oh,
and
thank
the
you.
vet appointment. I hope it all goes well.
Thank you.
I'll echo that. I also hope your dog is okay, and I'll be specific in my appreciation and say the note that you noted, how teachers are maybe skilled in teaching and may or may not be skilled in facilitating learning in the social and emotional sense. And I think that's really an eye opener for me to think about what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that very much, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Catherine. I hope you feel better. What Peter Block talks about in his work, he's 82 years old. And as I said, I was just with him in Cincinnati, and he does, so he's doing this with us. We pay $30, have a potluck lunch, and we sit around. Only 30 of us showed up for a day with him. So it's great to have my own teachers and my own mentors in my life. And what Peter says in this century, so if you're 82, you figure you get some ability to speak on maybe an idea for this century. He goes, in this century, the leadership development will be more modeled on learning how to convene people together and facilitate deeper conversations. So the art of facilitation. So leadership is not like motivational and inspirational and all powerful and all know. Leaders are going to be more sought after when they have these facilitative convening skills. And just to leave you with this, so something I'm looking forward to, I'm going to Australia in November for the first time to be giving this workshop on leadership. So the title of my workshop is Redefining Leadership in a Post-Pandemic World. And, if you're interested, I'll make a little plug. This is something I'd be more than happy to come out to Wisconsin and doing in a small, but it's using Peter Block's material to talk about leadership. And leaders could be, leaders in business, leaders in church community, leaders in school communities, any of those sectors. And for me personally, it's going to be great because I get to go with my daughter, and her best friend lives in Australia. And Mark Thorsborn, who again was my trainer, came over in '94, is inviting me over to Australia to give that talk. And I'll share more. I work for Peter's company as a consultant too. And there is an online class in October. It's 3 consecutive Thursdays called Leader as Convener. And I'll send you that link if anybody's interested in that. So there is, I still got to make some money somewhere in the world, but in small doses. I have very small tastes. I am whatever. Okay, so listen, it was great to meet you all again. Elisa, good to see you again,
Good to
especially
see you too.
Catherine, Chelsea, and Jenny. Have a great day. Good luck with your training tomorrow, Jenny. And I'll send you a follow-up email tomorrow, Lisa, with some other next steps. Take care, everybody.
Lee.
Awesome. Thank you so much.